I was at rock bottom after my wife left me. It was a sweet woman with dimples who rescued me when I was questioning my own purpose in life. At that time, I never imagined our relationship would turn out this way. My name's Logan. After graduating from college, I landed a job in a top-tier company. Typically, after the training period for new employees, they'd be assigned to a branch office near the headquarters, but I was assigned directly to the headquarters. The job was rigorous. Only good results were acceptable. It was demanding from the beginning. Determined not to fall behind my seniors, I strived hard and rapidly improved my skills. I graduated from a prestigious university. Always loved studying and aimed for the top. Perhaps it was sheer luck that brought me this far. However, these two qualifications seemed to naturally boost my image. I'm fairly tall, but I'd say I have a pretty average appearance. Fashion isn't exactly my strong suit. Still, thanks to my credentials, I often got approached by women. My 20s went by in a whirlwind, with both work and personal life keeping me on my toes. After working at the company for several years, I hit the age of 30. Professionally, I might not have any official title yet, but I felt I was on the brink of becoming a supervisor. On the personal front, I started dating someone a friend introduced during a night out, and just last year, we tied the knot. We moved into a reasonably spacious and stylish apartment with a great view and were thoroughly enjoying our newlywed life. With my salary, we were comfortable, and considering our plans to have children, the physical toll, and future considerations, my wife chose to be a full-time housewife. Things at work were going smoothly, and every day I would return to a home where my wife was eagerly waiting. Everything seemed to be sailing smoothly, at least up to this point. Then one day, a transfer notice came in. The new location, a rural branch office, quite the contrast from the bustling city I am accustomed to. The notice did mention supervisor, so it was undeniably a promotion, but having assumed I'd stay at the headquarters, I was visibly shaken. I headed home and broke the news to my wife. But there was no joy in the promotion for me. The first thing out of her mouth was, "Why such a countryside? What's going on?" I was told by HR that they needed my skills at the new location. Even after relaying this to my wife, she seemed far from convinced. Moreover, the new place would require a move. While my wife was struggling to come to terms with it all, we didn't have much time before the move, so we started looking for a new place to live and went for some viewings. Throughout the day, as we visited multiple places, seeing the town, the buildings which looked like shabby apartments if we were in the city, her mood progressively soured. On a whim, we drove by the new branch office. The sight of its worn-out walls against the backdrop of a fading town wasn't encouraging. She was speechless, just entering this place. She couldn't accept the continuous unsettling events, and our views couldn't align. We ended the day with just the viewings. Once we got home, discussions turned into arguments. Sure, it's labeled as a promotion, but isn't this just a demotion in disguise? If you work there, you'll never get a promotion or a raise. We could be living below our means for the rest of our lives. So my wife complained in tears. Our discussions reached a deadlock, and before we knew it, moving day arrived. We decided to keep our electronic appliances in the city apartment for now. I took only my belongings and moved into the new apartment alone. For the time being, the plan was for my wife to visit during weekends to see how things played out. However, after several weeks, she still hadn't made peace with the situation, saying, "I can't live here. I can't have the life I want. And a husband working in a branch office with a dubious chance at a raise. I don't want it." After being told that by my wife, we ended up divorcing. I guess it's inevitable. Time for a fresh start and to focus on my job. That was my mindset, but the weight of the word divorce hit hard. Often at work, my hands would stop and my thoughts would spiral. I remember how homely my ex-wife was, how she always kept the house clean and had delicious meals waiting for me. Just hearing her cheerful welcome home would wash all the fatigue away. I thought I'd be fine living alone, but with the divorce, it's lonely and tough. Can't live the ideal life in the countryside. What was my worth after all? Sigh. I sighed loudly, even though I was at work. Seeing my distress, some colleagues, feeling sorry for me, invited me out for drinks. You're much more approachable than the previous supervisor. You're doing so well for someone so young. You're sharp and precise, just like when you were at the headquarters. Even some older colleagues were present, and they all refrained from bringing up the divorce, instead encouraging and praising me. With that warmth, I was re-energized. Time has a way of healing things. After a while, I became accustomed to my new life here and dedicated myself to the responsibilities at hand. Around that time, our branch was scheduled for an occasional inspection. "Logan, long time no see. I'll be here for the week, so let's work well together." Hearing that familiar voice and turning around, I was met by Sarah, a former colleague from the headquarters. Though Sarah is younger than me, her fearless determination is well recognized, making her an adept career woman, especially in the field of inspections. She has the demanding task of traveling to branches nationwide, constantly on the move. Still, Sarah never complains and takes on her duties with unwavering stamina. I've always held her in high regard. "Sarah, have you been well?" I couldn't help but feel a sense of camaraderie. My voice grew louder with happiness. "Oh, my apologies. I should address you as Miss Connor here, right?" Given our current positions, Sarah now held a higher position than I did. After straightening up, I greeted her again, to which she replied with a playful chuckle, "Don't be so formal." She then nudged me with her elbow just like she used to. When Sarah laughs, adorable dimples form on her cheeks. When it comes to inspections, everyone tends to get a bit tense, but thanks to Sarah's charming demeanor, the atmosphere always settles into a comfortable state, allowing everyone to work as usual. It's quite remarkable. Then that night I decided to go out to dinner with Sarah. She was staying at a hotel nearby, and since she was planning on dining out, she asked for restaurant recommendations. Even though it was just the two of us having a meal, our conversation was mostly about work. In such a relaxed setting, we could discuss matters we wouldn't have time for at the office, making the time fly by fruitfully. As our meal and conversation neared its end, I noticed Sarah glancing at her watch. "I'm sorry, we've been here quite a while, haven't we? We should probably head out. Your wife might be getting worried," said Sarah as she began to prepare to leave. Seeing the look on my face, she tilted her head in confusion. "Well, the thing is," I then shared with her that I had gotten divorced. I went into the reasons as well, and as I spoke, Sarah listened attentively, nodding from time to time. She then casually remarked, "You know, with your capabilities, I'd expect you to be back at the main office soon." Surprised by her candid statement, I asked, "What do you mean?" Sarah responded, "It's probably a temporary placement. Once you've turned this branch around, I bet they'll want you back at headquarters." Her tone made it sound like a given. I was curious about where she had gotten such information. Sarah chuckled and said, "Don't underestimate a woman's network." I was all ears, completely absorbed in the conversation. The distance from the city hustle, the divorce, and even though my duties might have been lighter than at the headquarters, perhaps my spirits had been down without me realizing. I had perhaps underestimated myself. Seeing this, Sarah laughed and said, "Do you even realize how talented you are? Your skills are well known at the headquarters, and of course, I'm aware too." She ended on her usual cheerful note, "You better keep up the good work," and gave me a pat on the shoulder. The pain thawed, but it rekindled my spirit completely. I'll return to the main office someday. With that resolve, I worked even harder. Time flew by, and before I knew it, I was 35. "Thank you, sir," one colleague said. "I'll miss you. I hope to be just like you someday." I received a large bouquet and shook hands with everyone in my department. I worked exceptionally hard as a supervisor, leading our team to great success. I also mentored my successor, who then moved up to a managerial position. In recognition of my accomplishments, I have now returned to work at the headquarters. Even though I was returning to the same department as before, I got a promotion. I'd be joining as a department head. The bustling city atmosphere felt familiar, while the air quality was so-so. I've always loved the vibrant energy of the city. I took a few days off to handle my move and settle down before officially starting at the main office. My colleagues at the headquarters, knowing it would be hard to coordinate once I got busy, decided to throw me a welcome back party during this break. They booked the city's finest upscale restaurant for the celebration, combining 2 private rooms just behind the counter seats. Seeing all those familiar faces and sharing the joy of working together again naturally brought smiles and lively conversations. Just as I thought the day would end on a high note, something unexpected happened. When I looked towards the counter to place an additional order, a customer walking in caught my eye. Looking closer, I realized it was my ex-wife. And she wasn't alone, she was with a man. Our eyes met, and she looked as startled as I felt, freezing in place. The man noticed and asked my ex-wife, "Who's that?" Snapping back to reality, she gave a wry smile and replied with a sigh, "Oh, that's my ex-husband." The man then said, "Oh, that guy," and looked at me with a wry smile. There wasn't much left to say. She seemed to feel the same, promptly turning her back to me, and both of them took seats at the counter. I didn't let it bother me and continued chatting with my colleagues. However, on my way back from the restroom, my ex-wife called out to me. "Why are you here?" she asked with a cold tone in her voice. "I came back," I replied in the same tone. She laughed dismissively and remarked, "After being demoted, you sure had the guts to come back. You probably screwed up again, didn't you?" Giving me a pitiful look. The man sitting beside her seemed to be asking her about me. Graduating from a prestigious college and then getting demoted. Makes no sense, he sneered. Irritated by their comments, I said, "Well then, ready to leave." However, my ex-wife quickly pulled the man close to her and gloated, "He's quite impressive, isn't he?" Without me asking, she began to brag about how he works for a top-tier company, how talented he is, and how his future is so much brighter than mine. Every now and then, she'd throw in a resentful comment about me. From time to time, her bitterness towards me mixed in. As for the man, while he said, "Don't talk like that, it's sad for your ex-husband," he didn't seem entirely displeased with her praises. He chuckled condescendingly at me with every nod he gave. I tried to tune them out, looking for the right moment to head back to my seat. Just then, a colleague heading to the restroom stopped in his tracks. "Hey, isn't that you, Jake?" My colleague recognized the man and addressed him. "Oh, it's a pleasure. Quite the coincidence," Jake responded. It seems they know each other. They started chatting lightly, but the man kept stealing glances at me. "Wait, do you work with this guy?" Pointing at me, he asked my colleague. I wonder if they seemed close. My colleague looked surprised that the man didn't recognize me. "Hey, you can't talk to him like that. He's our new department head, and so young and impressive. You should greet him properly. I mean, seriously, this man, This Mr. Stern is something else. He's the youngest ever in our company's history to be promoted to this position. My colleague gleefully shared this, briefing me on the details about this Jake guy before taking off. Turns out, this man is a sales rep from a major supplier who frequents our department. After hearing about me from my colleague, the man whispered, "Is Logan the one I've heard rumors about?" His face progressively paled. My ex-wife seemed momentarily stunned but soon snapped, "Wait a minute. You mean he's higher up than you?" and confronted the man with a frustrated look. Still pale-faced, the man muttered something about needing to greet me properly but was taken aback by my ex-wife's rebuke. There's no point in sticking around to watch their spat. I locked eyes with the man, saying, "So you're Jake, right? I'll remember that," with a pleasant smile, then made my way back to my seat. Yet, I could still hear voices from behind. Glancing towards the bar seats, my ex-wife and the man seemed to be having an ongoing dispute. When our eyes met, Jake quickly looked away, urging my ex-wife, "Let's leave now," and quickly settled the bill. With a face portraying sheer frustration, my ex-wife gave me one last glance, then slammed the door on her way out. Soon after, I returned to my dream position at the company's headquarters. From day one, with a hectic schedule, I felt that old buzz, making me even more passionate about my job. Some time later, I bumped into Jake at work. He immediately approached me, deeply bowing, apologizing for his rudeness that day. I told him I didn't mind at all anymore, but given his sincere regret, I offered, "Want to grab some coffee?" After a couple of sips, he let out a long sigh, finally appearing relaxed. We made small talk about work, but the conversation naturally shifted to my ex-wife. Apparently, they had a falling out. Whether it was her pride or something else, she ended up breaking things off with Jake. I couldn't help but be slightly baffled. Was she so set on snagging a well-educated, high-earning man? I feel sorry for my ex-wife, too, even though she is beautiful to look at, cheerful and friendly, and has many good qualities. Though Jake came off as a jerk that day, I've heard from others that he's genuinely talented. I cheered him on, telling him to keep his head high. After work, as I stepped out of the office, my phone rang. The screen read, "Sarah." Before I could finish saying hello on the phone, Sarah eagerly started talking. "Hey, it's me. I'm coming back this Sunday." Her voice was as bubbly as ever. Since that inspection, Sarah and I had kept in touch. At first, our conversations were mostly about work. Sarah would often give me a piece of her mind, always offering emotional support. I think the reason I never gave up and aimed higher was probably because of her presence. "I know you better than anyone else. Have some confidence and just do it." That's how she sounds on the phone. Even though she's supposed to be younger than me, it makes me laugh, wondering who's really the older one. Then on Sunday, I waited for Sarah at the JFK airport lobby. When Sarah saw me, her face lit up with a broad smile, and she hurried over. "I'm back," she said cheerfully, and Sarah hugged me. Being embraced in such a public place, I was taken aback and embarrassingly stuttered, "Welcome back." I tentatively put my arm around Sarah's back, not sure how to react in this situation. Then Sarah looked up at me with an expectant expression and said, "Don't you have something else to say?" I could feel everyone's eyes on us. It was hard to admit, but I looked at her and said, "I love you, Sarah." But she teased, "Is that all? Isn't there more?" making a mischievous face, urging me to say more. I felt like my face was on fire. But I knew I had to say it now, so I gathered my courage and proposed to Sarah right there. As Sarah and I communicated frequently, we became closer. We both knew our feelings for each other were growing, but with "I feel sorry for his ex-wife," 2. Even though she is beautiful to look at, cheerful and friendly, and has many good qualities, Sarah, traveling to various branches nationwide and having long overseas business trips, we hardly got a chance to meet. During this time, I once confessed my feelings over the phone, but she told me she wanted to hear it in person. And in time, we officially got married and became husband and wife. Hey, look, I found this adorable mug and just had to buy it. Sarah seemed to have sneakily hidden it among the moving boxes, intending to use it from today. She happily lays the two out side by side and smiles. The new apartment we got for our life together with Sarah. From our high-rise view, I feel even more motivated. She wanted to settle down and had expressed her wish to retire early from her job, but they didn't want to let go of such a valuable employee. After taking a short break, she decided to work part-time at the headquarters. As for me, my role as a department head keeps me extremely busy. It helps that Sarah understands my job. She's good at supporting me and has been a tremendous help. Come on, put your back into it and have a great day. Every day, Sarah playfully smacks my back as I head out. I think she treats me a little rough, but when she does this, the day goes strangely well. I'll be off now. Take care, Sarah, I tell her, and as I leave, I can't help but notice how her dimples make her smile even more endearing today. I have to keep working hard to ensure that smile never fades. I can't always rely on her support. This new chapter of our life is bound to be busy, but I remind myself never to take my wife for granted.